We are live. You're watching the Merged Marketing Podcast. You are listening to the Merged Marketing Podcast, and this is episode 140. And today we're talking about lead magnet quizzes to delight and engage. And my guest today right there is Ellen Coronet. Ellen, how you doing today?
Good, thanks.
Awesome. Ellen and myself became acquainted as we're part of a marketing group called the Marketing Trust. So it's always nice to rub shoulders with other marketing professionals. And Ellen brings a unique approach to the table, which is why I wanted to bring her on the podcast here today, because she is the queen of quizzes. And that's what we're diving into today. But before we get to that, Ellen, tell us a little bit about your journey into marketing and being the queen of quizzes.
So I am an applied social scientist. I got a degree in anthropology way back in the 80s, and I went to work for the pharmaceutical industry, building all kinds of marketing research, intelligence, strategy. We did modeling. I did thousands and thousands of focus groups. And what I've learned through all of this over the many years is that we can engage any brand heart to heart if we ask the right kinds of questions and get people out of their heads. So that's what I am applying now to businesses of all sizes.
I find quizzes is so interesting because it is so unique. And in a digital world where there is a lot of noise and a lot of repetition and a lot of copycats, one thing that is unique are quizzes, and they do engage people because they're different. And tell me a little bit about the engagement that you're seeing in quizzes in 2022.
Yeah, so there are many different ways to reach out from the organization, from the brilliance of the brand to the people who are out there. And the one you're probably thinking about the most would be a lead magnet, which is when you just sort of blast it out there, and then just by virtue of the clickbaity title, people are going to respond to that and come right in and go, oh, I want to know more about myself in this way. And while they do that, they're learning about the brand in a way that they never would have had an opportunity to learn anywhere else. So that's the most common use. But I'm also doing a lot of straight to shopping cart product quizzes, which is, which one of these is really right for me. And in taking that kind of a quiz, if you design it right, you're actually going to have a two-way conversation while they're choosing their product. So you're going to educate them about the brand, you're going to educate them about the different products, and then they're going to end up in the right bucket.
How does that work with a product quiz? Can you run us through an example of where a potential customer would be led down that journey of selecting a product that's the perfect fit for them?
Absolutely. One of my longest standing clients, going back to 2016, has been doing a product quiz with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And what happens is it's a shield to protect you from electromagnetic radiation. And so the first thing people want to know is, how much am I exposed? How bad is it? Do I really need anything? And once they get into that quiz, they are then led down a series of very engaging questions that make you kind of think about your behavior and your environment. And then at the end, they get a recommendation for a specific level of shield. And in the past, that process could have taken months for people to figure out which level, and then they get it and it's the wrong level and they send it back, and then they get on the phone, and then back and forth. So this streamlined that process tremendously and allows people to just end up with a shield right away.
So breaking into the actual quiz itself, because I find that as a psychology major, I like geeking out on this stuff too, but I'm curious as to how you come up with the questions and the point system in order to generate that result, which is the product that's the best fit for them. Can you break down that process a bit and how that works?
Absolutely. And this is where working with a social scientist like me is going to be so different from trying to build one yourself. So you can go out there and find all kinds of platforms that allow you to do it, but most of them take shortcuts that make people feel like they're being shoved into a box and they don't feel like they're being seen and heard. So the social science is what it doesn't take a lot of time because I know what I'm doing, but it takes the most important piece is that upfront dive into what are you really going for your own brand and for your customers. What are the pain points and what are the outcomes, and how do you move them from way over here where they're unhappy to way over here where you can make them really happy. And so in that discovery process, I come up with the algorithm that you're going to need to build it. And then I have several different platforms. So depending on how complex it is, I put most of my clients on the simplest one, and then they can manage it from there and work with someone like you to make sure that it gets out to the world. So that's where a lot of people fall short, is we build this brilliant thing that, really gets at who people are and makes them feel seen and heard. And then it sits on a website and nobody sees it.
So there's a couple questions there. And I guess the first one I do want to hit is traffic. Is how do you get that traffic to that quiz on that page? Because you're right, you see that with a lot of videos that people spend all this money investing into a video production and it sits on YouTube with 50 views. I feel it could be the same way with a quiz, if not doing that generating traffic part of the whole equation, if that's not done right.
Exactly. Yes. And I have several clients who have done a tremendous job of reaching out to the right audiences using things like Google AdWords. Facebook is not so great especially not for business to business, but business to consumer, that you can, if you have an audience already on Facebook, if you have large groups or some sort of a real presence where you're posting content a lot, you can pull people in, because as soon as they see that there's a free quiz, it generates a lot of interest. And then part of the trick is also making a real good payoff at the end. So they feel like, if they take this quiz, they're not just going to get slapped on somebody's list. And the problem too is that there are a lot of, like, the name test thing. I shouldn't probably say names, but there's a lot of phishing going on using quizzes, and we don't want to get anywhere close to that. So you have to be very careful about, engaging your audience wherever you are posting the quiz, to make sure that they understand this is a two-way conversation and nothing else is going to happen other than they're going to get a gift or they're going to have access to a product that will help them.
In your experience, what has been some of the most enticing rewards at the end of a quiz that gets people to go through that process of taking that quiz? Because, I mean, for myself, I don't have a lot of time to do surveys. I get asked to do surveys all the time. I ain't got time for that. I have no time to get through my entire inbox. So how am I going to have time to get through a quiz?
Yeah, it really depends on what you're offering, like what the payoff is. So I can tell you what doesn't work as well is just a simple discount, because why are they going to want a discount on something they didn't know they wanted in the first place? Right? So simple discount doesn't work. Sometimes a free 15-minute or 20-minute or 30-minute call to go over the results and give you more insights and more things to do, more action steps, can be very engaging if it's done well. But a lot of times people just say, oh, call me and I'll talk to you about it. And then nobody's going to call them or, sign up to talk to them. So it depends on what you're offering and what you're doing. The best in marketing research in general, when you're doing a survey, is if you're going to ask people to spend more than 10 or 15 minutes, you want to give them a monetary gift. So $5 at Starbucks or, something like that. And that is worth the investment, because you'll get a lot of really engaged customers out of it.
That was actually my next question was, is there a perfect amount of questions that need to be asked in a quiz in order to generate the result that you need to give, without being too long and too time intensive.
So you're going to get a lot of different answers depending on which experts you ask. There's a lot of formulaic answers out there that say you don't ever ask more than 9 questions, blah, blah, blah. But what I find is if you're engaging people in a conversation, that's just like saying you never talk to somebody for more than 15 minutes. Well, that's not true. You could be in a really great conversation. You want to keep going, right? You want more out of it. So a really solid quiz tends to have somewhere around 10 to 15 questions, but they could be multiple part questions. And the trick for me is not to use too many multiple choice boxed answers where people have to sort of push themselves into your answer in your head. What you really want is to use a lot of scales, which is what I do. And they're called psychographics in the marketing research world or in the social science world. They're called psychographics. And that just means that you can put yourself, as you're answering the questions, you put yourself somewhere on the scale, and you can get into a nice rhythm with that because you see, a series of statements or identifying, descriptions, and you just keep saying, oh yeah, that one's me. Oh no, that one's not really me. Well, that's sort of me, and you just keep going. So if you can get that kind of rhythm, you have a little more length at your disposal.
Okay, that's good information. Now, when you do a quiz, would you obviously encourage the quiz creator to say how long that quiz is going to be prior to that person taking the quiz? You should be transparent.
I do usually do that, but I've found that people don't really believe you.
Mm.
So the proof is in the pudding. And at the end of a quiz, you can automatically link them into LinkedIn, Twitter, so Facebook, all of the social media, so you can get more people to take the same quiz if it was a good experience for them. So that's what you're really going after, is that user experience has to be really top notch, and then it doesn't really matter how much you tell them it's going to take or how long it actually takes.
Are you embedding these quizzes directly onto somebody's website, or is it a third-party website that would generate this quiz? What does that look like, and how does it create the best user experience as possible for that client?
So for compliance reasons and for privacy and safety, we use platforms that house the data for you, but then allows you to access it as much as you want. I'm in the middle of building a large instrument for cybersecurity organization. And so we are never going to put the actual data on their website because we don't want anybody to find out how cyber unsecure people are and then go, oh, I'm going to go get that database, So it lives on a third-party site, but the experience for the user is as if they are right on your website because it can be embedded right there. And there's an automatic email that can come straight out, and then it gets integrated into your email marketing platform and so on. So the experience for the user is very one-to-one. But for safety reasons, the data is not housed in either place.
I kind of want to get a tangible example here. And, we had a question here. What questions would you recommend for accountants to ask in a quiz? So just take, hypothetically speaking, your client is an accountant and they want to generate the perfect quiz to generate more leads for accounting. Maybe walk me through that process, or come up, what are a couple questions that you would ask within that quiz to get that lead?
So the first thing I would do is sit down with this particular brand and find out what makes them different from everybody else, because that's going to give us our clue into, what kind of hoarder are you, what kind of, whatever it is that the particular brand is doing that makes them feel very different from your regular CPA. So we'll sort of dig through the psychographics of a really great client for that particular accountant, and then we'll come up with a series of questions that allows people to not give too much personal information, but to sort of find themselves in your world, in that accountant's world.
I strongly believe a lot of business owners, because business owners and entrepreneurs are busy, but they always neglect the part that happens prior to the actual deployment of the quiz or the lead magnet, whatever it is. You need to understand who you're trying to attract, because too often it's like, I don't care, just get me leads. It's like, no, you need to ask the right questions to get the right lead, or you're going to be spinning tires with these leads that are just not good fits.
Right. So here's where I'm different from the norm on what you're about to say or what you're saying, or I may be cutting you off, but I'm very excited about this because you hear all the time, oh, you have to know your target audience. You have to know, who's your ideal client. And I always make my clients flip that upside down. What are you trying to do in the world? Because if you get your passionate purpose out there and how you're different, then you're going to be you're going to connect automatically with the people who are ideal for you. And you may not know who they are before you find them. So that's why a quiz is so great, because you can, if you do that kind of research that you just said internally and through brainstorming with somebody who can guide you through properly, then you'll find those key points that you want to ask people to think about. And then your ideal clients will show up because they're resonating right with that you are so excited about. So sorry if I cut you off, but that's my answer to that, is there is no such thing as find your ideal client. Find your purpose, find your passion, get that out there, and then your ideal clients will connect.
That's an excellent point, and you're totally justified with cutting me off there. And I actually want to tell my team backstage to soundbite that clip, because I think it is so important, and that a lot of people neglect that. Especially when we have those conversations with clients or leads about who they're trying to go after. Look at yourself first, and who do you want to attract? And it's
or what you're doing. Why are you so excited about what you're doing? Because somebody's going to resonate with that. And it could not be the purple lady with purple hair. It could be the little 21-year-old who's sitting there typing away on text, and all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, that's interesting. So you can't decide ahead of time who your ideal client's going to be.
It happened. It's very easy to get leads on a lot of these platforms. It's super easy to get leads. If you want to get leads from a cold audience, you can get them, but you got to think about you really do have to think about the quality of that lead and what they're opting into. If you're giving away a freebie, well, you're going to attract people that like free things. And that might not be the best lead for your high ticket item or whatever it is you have to offer. So you just need to think about that, because as great leads are, like what Ellen's alluding to here, there's a lot behind that you need to understand to attract the right person to your business.
And that's my beef with those high volume quiz platforms. They're not doing justice to the amazingness of the brand and the amazingness of the people that they're trying to reach. And that's why I think it's really, really important to, use more scales and, really dig into what you're trying to do in the first place before you go out there and start blasting things. And then that also speaks to your earlier question of what do you offer at the end? You really need to think, what journey are you taking them on? Where do you want to end them? Where do you want to start them? Where do you want them to be able to upsell, to continue going forward?
Let's talk about that, because that was my next question, was the PostQuiz journey. What happens after they complete the quiz? Is there a strong call to action that you're getting them to take via email? What does that process look like?
So the first step is pretty formulaic. You get them to the end of the quiz, and they usually get to see a result screen right in front of them that has everything they want to know and an immediate call to action button right there. And at the same time, you send the data through to your email marketing platform, so you can begin a series of nurturing emails that will go out periodically from there. You can add them to your newsletter list if you got their permission, things like that. And then at the same time, another email can go straight out of the quiz that actually has their personal scores in it, and repeats the call to action and repeats the introduction to who your brand is or what you're offering and so on. So there's many touch points that can happen immediately after somebody finishes, plus they can automatically share it with their friends on social media so other people can come in.
Do you find certain industries work better with quizzes than others? And if so, what are those industries?
So my mission, my theory, my little mad scientist hat here is going, no, everybody should be doing this, because what we're doing is we're bringing the heart of the business out to the right people and making real connections. I've been in, the pharmaceutical industry. I've been in other kinds of, manufacturing and business to business. I've been in the financial industry. I've been in so many different industries. And I've always felt that applied social science is exactly the way to build the right kind of reputation and momentum, and to really engage and get loyal customers to come in in the right way. So my feeling is that there really are no limits on it. Where it's being used the most right now is a lot of coaching, a lot of consumer products, health really, holistic health products, things like that, vitamins, supplements, all of that. But I honestly don't feel there's any real limitation. And some of my most successful clients have been in a number of different industries. So.
Awesome. This has been great, Ellen. If our audience has any questions for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Ellen Cornett, which is my name, at LNKcreative.com, which I put right there in my name.
You'll get all of that contact information in the show notes for this episode, merged.ca/podcast/140. Ellen, we end every episode with the same question. That question is this: if you could choose one person, dead or alive, to represent your brand, who would it be and why?
Albert Einstein.
Wow.
That was easy.
That was the quickest answer we've ever received to that question.
That's so easy, because he understood that imagination is so much more important than just the logical thinking. It's the right brain, left brain, pull it all together. And that's the way we should be marketing. That's just how I feel.
Awesome, Ellen. This has been great, and you can tell you're passionate about what you do, and you've definitely found that thing that keeps you going, and that's amazing to hear. And if anybody has any questions about quizzes or how to formulate the right quiz, I definitely encourage you to reach out to Ellen. Ellen, thank you so much for your time, Ellen, and we'll be talking to you again real soon.
All right, thank you.